DJ Abomination Remix.
So, Jimmy, I like to ask all our guests in the beginning, like, what are your origins? Like, where'd you grow up?
So my secret origin, which will not be secret after this, is I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, born and raised in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah.
3 brothers, and comic books, were handed down. I have 2 older brothers that had comic books everywhere. So I grew up, granted they were probably Archies and horror comics and stuff like that, but I grew up, comics were everywhere. And again, this is the early 60s. I'm older than you guys. And, so there wasn't a lot on TV. There wasn't a lot, there wasn't no computers, you guys know that, and all that kind of stuff. So comics were like a thing that they were everywhere. We went to the barbershop, there was comics. We went to the doctor's office, there were stacks of comics. Like, comics were everywhere growing up. And of course, over time, I started liking certain ones and looking for other ones. And I used to get my comics from the Salvation Army. They would fill a box up and they would weigh it, and you'd pay like $1 per pound or $1 per 2 pounds or something.
What a deal.
So I used to, like, for $2 or $3, I used to get like 300 books,
Ooh.
but I wasn't allowed to pick through them. The guy would just put them in a box and say, that's $3. Then I'd go home and open this box that had like a couple hundred books in it. And, that's how I started collecting comics. That's, way before anybody cared.
That's a true mystery box.
And what the mystery box was great is there was Archies, there was Richie Riches, there was horror comics, there was old Marvels, old DCs. So it was mixed. So I grew up not being a Marvel or DC fan. I was more of a fan of whatever I was attracted to. And for me, it was the comic artwork. The artwork was the thing that, like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is cool. And I started learning, this is Jack Kirby, and that's John Buscema, and oh, this guy Barry Smith, man, Conan never looked better. And so I grew up appreciating the artwork, and then I started looking at the credits, which back then not a lot of people did, and so I started getting my favorite writers and my favorite artists, and I started buying like that. And part of that was I would spend a lot of time drawing all the time. I would try to copy the artwork in the comic. So, I was doing that every day. And, I eventually went to the High School of Art and Design, which was an art high school in Manhattan that was free. You just had to take a test to get in. Wow. And I took cartooning there. This was Mark Tech.
Oh, wow.
We went to high school together. And,
Really?
And Mark was brilliant back then, which was, of course you can believe that. The guy's an amazing artist.
Oh, for sure.
But when I went through high school, my senior year, I started, I had a teacher, some professional, Chick Stone, who inked Jack Kirby and the Fantastic Four. And at the time, he was inking a book called The Invaders for Marvel.
Oh.
Needed help doing backgrounds. So I took the subway to Queens, and he gave me Frank Robbins' pencil page and said, here, ink the backgrounds. And I was in high school.
That's great.
Wow.
So I was doing some backgrounds with him. I ghosted for some other people. I worked on Howard Duck magazine, Howard the Duck, and a thing called Time Warp for DC, which was like horror stories. And then I realized by the end of my 12th grade that if you work in comics, you can't even make a living. That's how terrible it pays. So I decided to get out of comics, and I went to college for advertising and to be an art director. I went to City College in New York, and then I eventually started working in an ad agency, and I started at $100 a week. And by the time I left, I became a partner.
Wow.
And when I turned 30, I was like, I want to do comics again. I think I figured out a way to make money doing comics. And a buddy of mine, Mark Texera, was penciling and inking Ghost Rider and Punisher every month.
That's right.
Wow.
Nice.
And we got in touch, and he said, look, man, I need help doing these books. So I said I would help him. I would help him draw the books if we can work in the Marvel offices. So he said, sure, why not? So every night I would leave my regular job, go a couple of blocks over, go up to Marvel, bullpen, sit there and work on Ghost Rider and the Punisher. And eventually editors started seeing me work there and going, you know what, can you ink these pages overnight? Can you do this? So I became the guy that was saving books, like deadlines for books. And that's how I started getting work, and I've been working ever since. So that's the secret, not so secret origin. It took a long time to get into comics, but eventually I did. Yeah.
No, I'm so glad that you decided to get back into comics, instead of working that day job.
Well, advertising,
so
it was a great job. I mean, I designed movie posters. I've done a lot of movie posters. I've worked on Pepsi Cola and Maybelline were the two companies, our main clients. So I did a lot of work, but it wasn't creative. I didn't feel it was creative enough. I just felt like I made great money. But anybody that knows me, I care about money about this much. As long as I have enough to get by, I'm cool. So I don't chase money. I kind of chase what I want to do. So I definitely was a late bloomer with everything, but I think I've made up for it for the past 20-something years because I've been working like a dog ever since.
How was it growing up in New York in the 70s, man? Like I heard New York was a pretty rough place back in those days.
It was rough. I was an Italian kid from Brooklyn. If just watch Saturday Night Fever, that's pretty much was my life back then.
That movie, dude.
Perfect.
Love that movie.
No, but yeah, I also I used to go to school on the subway from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and I would wear a knife on the outside of my. I would have a knife and a little belt type thing.
Uh-huh.
So it would be right there. I'd wear it clear as day, because it did get a little tough. I mean, I've been mugged a couple of times. I've gotten to brawls a couple of times. And when I had the knife on me, I felt a little more secure. But definitely in the I went from high school, was from 77, 78, and 79.
Mm-hmm.
And New York was a lot different, man. I mean, it was even the subways, I come home at night and there's some rowdy crap used to happen on the subways. And growing up there, you kind of, your peripheral vision is heightened. Like I could see almost behind me, it's a thing, when you grow up
sixth sense.
Yeah, when you grow up where
you were Daredevil.
everything around you is predators, you kind of learn to protect yourself. And that's how it was. Look, as horrible as it was, it's definitely more charming than it is now. Like now it's like a cleaned up version of everything. And when I was in high school in the 70s, New York was crazy. It was wild. It was crazy. I mean, there were, there was that HBO had a series about the 42nd Street. What was it called?
The Deuce. The Deuce, right?
The Deuce was exactly
The Deuce.
how it was. Like the most.
I love that show.
It was the most accurate thing I've ever watched on TV about the 70s in New York. So as much as it was scary, it was also exciting, right? Because it was like 17 and 18. The drinking age was 18, so I was able to go to bars.
Ooh.
And there were like, the city had after-hour joints. It had like mob-owned after-hour joints. So we used to go there and 4 a.m. and gamble and drink and order food, and it was a different world. I won't say it was a safer one, but it was definitely more colorful. Like people got out and lived more, where people now, I feel like, are very much in their homes. Like they don't travel as much. They don't do, well, obviously with COVID, nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
But even before that, when everything's too safe, there's this sort of like, you get kind of bored. And I think our lives need to be shaken up once in a while, at least a positive way.
I'm the same way, man. Whenever I feel safe, I'm kind of like, what's around the corner, man? This is not good. Because I grew up in Oakland, and it's
Right.
in the 80s, and it was a rough place to be, man. So I totally understand, like the whole Daredevil thing. Like you just grow that, right? Like everybody's a Daredevil in the city.
The people around me, you had to be delicate around them, because I did have people that were friends or family friends or neighbors that were involved in crime stuff, right? And the whole families were. I don't want to get into like mafia, but I'll just say organized crime and stuff like that. So my neighborhood was made up of people that were all different backgrounds. So you had to be careful, you know, you had to play this game with people because there was like, and my dad owned a little paint store in Manhattan, but there was a lot of times I had to bring people paint and I had to say, my dad said it's on the house. You know, I won't go further than that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's how the world was back then. It's a little calmer now, although, you know, it's different kind of chaos now, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, those times were way different. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about what's kind of happened next, but let's kind of look at what's happening in the future. So I know that you know, you are again all over social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you're also promoting a lot of things too. I mean, I see like all promoting all your Kickstarter. So how did you really get involved in that? You know, being from some, you know, having comic books that were published by like Marvel, DC, to something that I guess it's more like I'm a self-publisher.
Okay, so, you know, well, you guys, back in '94, Joe Quesada and I got together and did like Ash and Painkiller Jane. We put out our own comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very lucrative for us. Even though we didn't get a ton of books out, it became very lucrative because we owned the intellectual property 100%. So somebody wanted to make T-shirts, they had to pay us. Somebody wanted to do a toy, they had to pay us. Somebody wanted to make a film of it, they had to pay us.
Mm-hmm.
So
Goodfellas style.
Yeah, so
Smart.
I should have learned better. I should have done my own lessons way back, because when we would do an event, I was also pulled into a deal with Marvel Knights. Like Marvel approached Joe and I to run a line of books. And because we love those characters so much, and I mean, if you look at the 4 characters, we picked the Daredevil, Punisher, Black Panther, and the Inhumans, even though it's a group, we look at it as a character.
Right.
So we left our creator stuff and went and did that for Marvel, because Marvel was under Chapter 11 at the time. They were not doing well. They were doing so badly, they let 2 idiots like Joe and I have the penthouse of their building to run a line of books.
My God.
But at the same time, Joe and I looked at it as like, hey, it's a challenge, man. We're going to be able to do whatever we want with these characters. And who owes us favors? And we're like, well, okay, Kevin Smith owes us for helping him for 2 of his films. We did some work and stuff. So let's get Kevin on Daredevil. And, you know, Mark Texeira got me into the business. I'm going to put him on Black Panther. You know, Punisher, I got Bernie Wrights in at the time, was a guy I loved his art, and we became friends. So it became like the Joe and Jimmy show of getting our friends to work on comics. And, you know, and when we did Marvel Knights, it pulled us away from the creator-owned stuff, you know? That said, it was very, very successful. We wouldn't have had the Black Panther movie. You wouldn't have had the Daredevil TV shows. You wouldn't have had the Punisher show. Don't blame us for the Inhumans, but you wouldn't have had that either. You know,
we may not even have Marvel if it wasn't for you guys.
Yeah,
Because I remember that time.
We don't know where it was going, but I left Marvel Knights when Disney bought it, and when they came out of Chapter 11 is when I left, and I said I wanted to start writing. So I started doing things like Gatecrasher and Beautiful Killer. I started always doing my own creator-owned books. And even up to now, I've always had a book or 2 on the side, like Monolith or G.I. Zombie, or I'll do stuff like I'm trying to look on my wall. There's a lot of books I've done for other companies, and then self-publishing. But all of a sudden, I'm listening online, and I read a ton about it. There was no comic pro doing Kickstarters when I did my first one. It was me. I think I was the first name guy that did it, but I looked it up and I said, this can kind of work because I can fund my book. Because back then I was putting every dime I had into every book. And the problem with that is if something doesn't work, you're screwed. There's no parachute, you know, and I had to probably go back and work on more corporate comics, which I like okay, but I prefer not to. But I like them okay. I have fun with them. But at the end of the day, you know, creating something like rebooting Harley, they should have probably threw $1 million in my pocket. In his pocket, but that didn't happen. So you learn again that, okay, I got to go back to creating my own stuff. So the Kickstarters were something that my buddy Patrick and I said, we can do this if it's on a decent scale. And we've done 15 of them so far. So every year I do like 2. and I have a whole wall of books that are creator-owned stuff. And you know, I have a guys. If somebody wants it for an IP, that's great, but it's not my day job. It's like that's. I want to make comic books, you know, and even things like Random Acts of Violence, which got made into a movie this summer. I'm happy about it, but at the end of the day, I take that money and I put it into some other new idea. So it's kind of, you know, maybe it's a snake eating its own tail, but I get a lot of comics out of it, you know.
Well, you can also tell. I mean, at least from other stuff I've read of yours, all your work is great. But I know, like when I read stuff like, I'll bring up this one right now, the Pro that you did, which I love, which to me is a precursor to The Boys.
Yeah.
You could tell the love that you have in there. Like, you could tell like you and Amanda's work on there. And I know that's Garth Ennis, and I don't know where the line between you and Garth were on it.
Well, I'll tell you, for that book, you'll like this real quick story. So it was me, Amanda, Garth Ennis, John McCrae, went to a convention in Essen, Germany. And we got really drunk night in a bar called Fritz Patrick's, you know, and we just started saying, what if there was a superhero hooker? And we started laughing, and Amanda's drawing on a bar napkin, and like 15 drinks later, we should do this as a comic. And that's how it happened. It was simple as that. We were like, and then we went around trying to sell it to some companies. So we went to DC, and they said, we want nothing to do with it. We went to...
I wonder why. I mean, the line by itself, I don't know how that could have ever happened.
No, but we went to a bunch of publishers, and Image was the first one. We went to another publisher, I won't mention them, but they said, can you change the name? And we're like, no, we're not changing the name. And so we finally settled on Image. Image was like, go ahead, we'll do it. And then we got a bunch of free publicity. Jim Stranko, because I said it in an interview, and this is really dating it because it came out in 2001, right? I think it was 2001.
Yeah.
And what I said in an interview is, you know, we're gonna terrorize comics with the Pro, you know, because she goes, you know, because we pick on the Justice League and we pick on, and Jim Stranko took it as a terrorist, like I was talking about terrorism, and he went and started raving about the book and saying, you know, we shouldn't do terrorism in comics. And I'm like, whoa. So he got us a lot of free press where I had to correct him and say, actually, Jim, what I said was, we're going to terrorize comics. We're going to have some fun. We're going to poke some fun at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, you know, meanwhile, the newspaper picked it up. And so that's why if you read the last page of the book, it says dedicated to Jim Stranko.
Oh, that's funny.
He helped the book get a ton of sales because people wanted to know what this book was about. So sometimes we turned a negative into a positive, and been friends with Jim ever since. But fun book. But again, there is a lot of love in that. I mean, Amanda, the backgrounds in that book alone, the crazy stuff going on, are just hysterical.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
what this is like. 3 creators completely unhinged. Actually 4, because we had Paul Mounts on the colors. We're completely, nobody's telling us what to do. And that's, to me, is always when you get the best comics.
Yeah, because I actually got the original copies back in my boxes back here. But I had to buy that because every few years I go back and read it. Because it's just, and even this one has a special second story with the Hoe. I forgot her arch nemesis.
The Hoe.
The Hoe, yeah, where she has like 6... She has 6 arms or 8 arms, and she's able to do more hand jobs.
Yeah, more hand jobs. So, it's completely ridiculous. The Boys is look, honestly, if I was Amazon, I would buy this property right up and put the Pro on the Boys and make it another character. Like tomorrow.
Oh my god, that would be great.
That would be awesome.
You know?
Yeah,
sign me up.
But yeah, I've loved your. I mean, especially I remember like reading Ash when it came out. Yeah. I remember reading I picked up all the Marvel Knights stuff because I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. Yeah. But I mean, just reading Daredevil, between you writing it and Kevin writing it, and then back in the day when Frank Miller wrote it, he's one of my favorite characters now because of you guys.
Yeah, we love Daredevil. I mean, you know, that was our first Marvel Knights character we asked for was Daredevil, and then the Punisher was the other one because I love the Punisher, even though there's no Punisher comics now.
I have to ask,
yeah,
were you there when? Were you on working when Frank Castle did the Ghost version or the Angel Castle?
that was Marvel Knights. That was on. So we launched 2 Punisher books, right? Because we wanted originally Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon to do the Punisher,
Right.
Yep.
but they had to finish Preacher first.
Okay.
So they said we can do it in a year. So
Okay.
we said okay. So we got a whole nother team on the Punisher, the first one. That's Bernie Wrightson and Chris and the guys, and we did that. That was our first Punisher series, and then as soon as Steve and Garth were open, that's when we did Welcome Back, Frank.
Okay.
They're both Marvel Knights books, though.
Yeah, because I remember both those, and we were kind of joking about the Ghost Guns one before. Or at least I was.
Yeah.
I'll claim it. But no, and even that run of Punisher was amazing.
It's fun. It's fun. You know.
Will
comic
we
book is
ever-
fun.
Will we ever get an Ash book back? I mean, I know Joe
That's-
is tied with Marvel.
So, with Painkiller Jane, right? Joe's like, that's more you. You can do Painkiller Jane all you want. Great. With Ash, Joe feels it's more his character. And so I have to wait till Joe decides that he wants to do it. We talk about it all the time. So you never know. We love that character.
Nice.
I mean, a fireman superhero is the most natural thing in the world.
Oh yeah.
And we love both of them, Jane and Ash. Yeah, so I'll say it'll never be never. We have actually every single piece of artwork from those books. We've never sold an Ash page.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
We figure one day we'll rescan them and recolor them and rework.
Alonso would
Nice.
like to buy one.
I would love it.
I could draw you an Ash. When I see you, I'll do you a sketch of Ash.
Nice.
Oh,
Very
no.
nice.
No,
Oh my God.
I can draw Ash in like 5 minutes. So.
Very nice.
Here you go.
So I'm just well, I was gonna say I'm just curious. Is there any writers out there that you kind of grew up liking, or any that you read now that just kind of inspire you to be better at your job? Or
Well, Michael Fleischer, one of the guys I love. Stan Lee was, of course, the voice of me. I love Stephen King, right? So to me, he does comics. It's just without the pictures,
Mhm.
I think I'm inspired by most of the writers that everybody else is. It's the Alan Moores and I loved Roy Thomas growing up because Roy just had all these great characters and but I won't say there's one. I gotta admit, I kind of read a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of writers I like for different reasons. So I can't say there's one. I will say Stan, the person being superhero kind of thing. But there was so many great ones. Jerry Conway. I mean, if you look at every character, they each have every writer has like a couple of characters. Like Frank Miller, I still love anything Frank does. Frank. Yeah. I mean, I have that giant Sin City book that weighs 800
nice.
pounds.
Yep.
So I kind of like everything. There's guys like Donnie Cates, and there's a whole bunch of guys they're doing great work. I just don't have enough time in the day to read them all, but part of writing is you don't want to read too much because you get easily influenced.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tend to listen to music more than I do read.
What are some of the music?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, because I'm writing dialogue, I have to listen to soundtracks, right? So I listen to John Barry or any Interstellar is one soundtrack I always have playing.
It's a great
because
one.
It has a momentum building up to it.
Yeah.
Chris
I like a
Nolan.
lot of classical music because, again, no words. I can just kind of focus on what I'm doing. God, I have so many soundtracks. It's not like I listen to Saturday Night Fever all the time,
Try
It has to
Tenet.
be music,
Try Tenet. That soundtrack. I just saw that movie, and that score was crazy, man. Tenet.
Are you like me where you watched the movie and you couldn't hear half the dialogue?
But that's the way Chris Nolan works, right? Like he turns up the music on you.
But with Tenet, it was like I couldn't understand. I kept moving around the theater because I'm like, I can't understand what they're saying.
But the thing
We
about
needed
Nolan
the
is you have to
captions.
watch this movie a couple times.
Well, I watch it when it's I can watch it at home. But we
Yeah.
Amanda and I went to see it in the IMAX theater near our house just a couple of weeks ago because they opened the theater and we looked to see where you could buy the seats ahead of time and there was nobody. So we went and watched it. We watched it on a 360 seat IMAX theater with her parents sitting on the other end of the theater. But everywhere we kept moving because we couldn't hear the dialogue. And then I read online that they said the dialogue, the sound is all messed up on the movie. And I'm like, okay, so it wasn't the theater, it was actually the movie itself.
I think he does it on purpose, Nolan, where he pumps up the score and drops the gain on the dialogue on you. You know, I can't say he did this on purpose because he would want some of the dialogue to be heard. We had major problems with it. Especially when they were on the speedboat. When they were on the speedboat and they were explaining everything, that was like the core, right? I was like, what the hell is going on? And I'm missing all this. Like, I'm gonna miss everything that's going on in this movie. You know,
and that was a shame because it's a cool movie. It's you know, but I'm gonna have to wait till it's on where I can buy it at home and watch it. You know,
and put subtitles on there.
Yeah. There you go. Yep. Yes, hey, it wouldn't hurt. But visually, it was great. Look, I just did an ash drawing for you while we were talking.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
It's on a postcard, so you have to email me your address. And then
Dude, Alonzo.
There you go.
Nice.
Oh, Jimmy, thank you.
That's why I said I'll do it in like 5 minutes real quick. You know?
Yeah.
So,
it was like less than 5 minutes. It was like 5 seconds.
No.
That was great.
Since we're on movies, Jimmy, I know you're jumping in. You've been doing screenwriting, and
yes,
you were working on Painkiller Jane with Jessica Chastain, right? Like, how was that? Moving into the movies.
Well, I mean, so I worked on way back when I worked on a Painkiller Jane TV show for Sci-Fi, right? In 2005, I worked on
That's what it was.
I worked on there was a animated movie called Dead Space Downfall, animated movie. Justin Gray and I wrote that movie. We wrote that. I wrote a bunch of Speed Racers episodes and Marvel stuff. The Painkiller Jane, it was Jessica wanted to develop it for herself, and then I kind of co-wrote the screenplay. I wrote the basic stuff and co-wrote the screenplay. But since then, she kind of bowed out of the project. She took on it looks like she took on 30 projects and decided, I can't do all of these. And I guess on some level, I don't blame her about Jane because that was a physical role. It was like, that would have killed her. So we're looking for a new person to play Jane right now. We have everything else set up, but they're going around looking for a new actress to play.
Oh, do you have any other actresses in mind maybe for a Painkiller Jane?
I do, but the minute I say it becomes like there's some article that'll print that says Jimmy Palmiotti wants this one for.
Oh yeah.
So I can't do that. I can listen to everybody else's ideas, but me saying it out loud is sort of like might shoot somebody they're thinking about in the foot.
Because I know JR and Alonzo have some ideas.
No, because I know that I believe that they did a sci-fi series for Painkiller Jane.
Yes.
And they had oh my god, I cannot remember.
Just know not Ruby
Kristana
Rose.
Kristana Loken.
Yes. And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, but it wasn't the character. It was a sci-fi version.
Yeah.
It wasn't super loyal. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't loyal to the character. So this movie is going to be like exactly the way I see it.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
Which is a lot deadlier, a lot sexier, and a lot more violent. So
are the 22 brides going to be there?
Not in this way.
No.
Yeah.
You know what happens with superhero movies where they fall apart is when they have to stick 85 characters in the movie.
You mean like in Batman Forever?
Justice League.
Forever, or even like look, I enjoyed Birds of Prey, but I wish it was just a Harley Quinn movie. You know?
Yeah.
It's not that I minded those guys, but my attitude is they should have just made a Harley Quinn movie first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
And then did a Harley and a Birds of Prey. That said, though, there's stuff in it I love. I mean, there's so much stuff that connects to our comic. Just her throwing up in the girl's purse was like my favorite thing in the movie.
Yeah. But they also didn't do justice to a lot of the characters. They didn't give them enough time.
I mean, why do you do a team thing when you don't even know who the team characters are? It's like, I just thought it was a bad call on everybody's part, but I don't own it. Yeah. If it was my character, it would have been a different thing. And if we were involved, it would have definitely been different, right? But we're not involved. So we just smile for the camera, as they say.
No, but it's like, and we've kind of talked about this before, like, your Harley Quinn run is like the defining like character. You know, you look at Harley and it's like you think of you guys. I mean, there's I don't think of Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. I think of Jimmy Palmiotti. I think of Amanda Connor.
We think of Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. We think of them because they're the guys that created. But all we try to do is do them justice. You know, like we try to take what they did and then modernize it. And you know, the thing we did right away, of course, make her independent, right? Get her away from the Joker, make her have her own life.
Oh yeah.
But Paul and Bruce love the version of it. You know, like we have their blessing during it, but. The one in the movies is definitely more based on what we did. You know, definitely Birds of Prey and the Suicide Squad ones, and the new Suicide Squad movie as well. You know, definitely like the versions we developed. But and it's great. It's great to see that. You know, it's always nice to get some validation, I guess, when you do something that people say, oh, they like this version. But you know, look, we're not doing any more Harley. We finished the last book. Amanda's finishing up the last book for the Birds of Prey, Harley and the Birds of Prey, but we're not doing any Harley after that. We're I think right now, I think we said all we could say about Harley for a long time. You know,
So I got two quick little questions.
Yeah.
One is with you. I mean, you don't see a lot of couples working together,
Right.
and I'm just kind of wondering how is it creating, not necessarily like you're able to create with your artist in house,
Right.
basically.
Yes.
That must be freeing to be able to kind of spit ideas off of your artist and be able to kind of develop stuff in house over the internet going, hey, this idea or anything.
Well, I'm lucky that Amanda is the person I'm working with because she's probably one of the most creative people I know.
Oh, yes.
She's got a visual sense. Her storytelling, you can read her comics without having the word balloons.
Mhm.
You can just go
Yes.
from picture to picture and get it. So it's great. I mean, working with Amanda, here's the good news is like I'll come up with an idea and I give it to her and she makes it better. And that's what you want with any, you know,
Yes.
anybody that has a partner in a business or in a band. You come up with a riff and the guy
Yep.
makes it better, right? You know, that's what you always want, but you don't always get it. So for Amanda and I, I'm just really lucky that, you know, I got her. Because not everybody is. She's all around creative. She's a builder, a designer. There's nothing she can't do because she has an art brain. She looks at something, she'll look at a wall or she'll look at a piece of architecture and she'll say, you know, you should move that over there and it makes more sense there. The comic stuff, she has a great ear for dialogue. A lot of the Harley dialogue is Amanda's.
Okay.
Oh my God, no way.
Awesome.
That
all
makes
the
sense.
rhyming, all the crazy stuff, that's all Amanda.
My follow-up question is,
Yeah.
So I've heard you're doing something called paper films. That I was wondering what exactly is that, and I'm looking forward to if that's your new Kickstarter.
No,
I'd
so
like to follow it.
No, Paper Films is actually the company that we've been doing all the creator-owned stuff on. So I've had it since 2001.
Okay.
If you go to paperfilms.com, it'll give you an all-over thing of what Amanda and I have been doing for the past 20 years. It gives all the independent books, has everything,
Awesome.
and there's a mailer. So if you click on the mailer, you'll get, like once a month, you'll get a thing. But we sell our artwork there. We sell the books there. We do the
Nice.
digital downloads. We announce when we're going to be at shows. So Paper Films is our publishing company. And with each Kickstarter, we put it under the Paper Films brand. It's our company. It's
Okay.
a big company of just two people.
Hey,
You
that
know?
works though.
Yeah.
But it's going great because if you go on Kickstarter, I mean, there's like 14 projects of yours right now that are on there, and I mean, each of them I kind of read the dialogues. I'm into sex and violence. Don't judge me.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I like it. We're doing a third one, so.
And then also Killing in America, man.
Killing Time, yeah.
Yeah, Killing Time in America.
I like
There's
adult
a ton
comics.
of projects.
I like
Yeah.
adult comics. The comics for kids, I feel like a lot of the comics in the stores right now are made for kids, and it's made to put on your bed sheets and pillowcases and
Yeah.
to make toys and everything. But I've gotten older and my tastes have changed. So I like a little nudity. I like violence. I like genres. You know, I like sci-fi and westerns, and you know. So I build it on the superhero stuff and matured it up a little bit. So that's a lot of what we do is we kind of, and then we do stuff like the Pro, which is just raunchy and stupid and funny, and but it's definitely not for kids. You don't give that book to a kid.
Oh no.
Unless there's a lot of explaining you have to do afterwards.
Or you have a cool uncle that explains it to you.
Yeah. I mean, we had when we first premiered with the Pro in San Diego, we had a kid come, and he's like, he's 16, and I said, look, I think he was like 15. I said, you got to be a little older for this book. What if I bring my mother to buy it for me? And I said, yeah, okay. And the mom came over, and I said, look, this is this is what's happening in the book. And she goes, it's nothing he hasn't seen already. I'm like, okay.
That reminds me when I worked at Blockbuster and trying to tell kids they couldn't rent R-rated movies or adult video games. It's the same thing. Yeah,
I mean, and that's the fun thing about being a kid is when you can finally get away with getting that stuff.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you snuck into an R-rated movie and it's like, woohoo, that's also part of growing up. We can't, it's just with reading and with entertainment, if you're going to write a book for a 10-year-old, you have to write it for a 14 or 15-year-old. Otherwise a 10-year-old's not going to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
So we always want to read a little higher than our age. We always want to go to the movie we can't go to, and that's part of growing up. So comics for me are the same way. It's like I like them a little adult.
Or just having older brothers, right? Yeah, that does it too, man.
Yeah, you can steal their voice. Yeah.
Yeah, but just a couple more questions before we let you go. We really appreciate you being on the show. Is there any future projects we should keep our eye on?
Well, I have a so in like 2 weeks launching another Kickstarter for a book called Pop Kill, and we already launched it for issue 1 and 2, but this one's going to be for 3 and 4. But if you never backed it, you can literally back it and get all 4 issues. So we're making sure everybody can get that. Amanda and I have a short story coming out in one of the Batman metal books, and it features all the super pets.
That's cool.
And it's pretty crazy. It even has super cow, bat cow, and
I was going to ask you if they have bat cow.
Yeah, bat cow's in it. He's shooting milk at people.
Nice.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
It's a fun story, and then the last thing we have for DC is the Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey #4, which will be out around Thanksgiving. Maybe right after Thanksgiving, and that's the last issue of the 4-issue book that Amanda did. And I think that's about it for them. So I was going to say Kickstarters are the way I'm going to be doing most of the future work. Once in a while, I did a mini-series for Marvel. I can't tell you what it is, but I don't know when it's going to come out. I did it in advance, so you do these things. When they put it out, that's their business. I got paid,
That's
so
what matters.
who cares?
And last question. In 2022, when me and JR and Alonzo and Steve go to New York Comic Con, where should we go and eat?
First off, you got to get away from the convention center.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing over there.
Yeah.
The other thing is with COVID, I think 30% of the place is closed, so I don't know what's open. Okay.
It is what it is.
But I will say if you're not familiar with New York, I'd say you should go down to Little Italy and get a really good Italian meal. I'm sure you guys like Italian food. Somebody's got to eat pasta or chicken parmesan or something.
Oh yeah,
It's funny.
We love the carbs. We love the
The
carbs.
last time I went to New York, I went to Little Italy
There you go.
and had a dinner there, and I thought it was pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
Yeah. So I would say you do that, or and Chinatown's right next to it. So if you're still hungry, or if you want to get some dessert, you can go to Chinatown. But where the convention center is, you're dealing with neighborhood places. They're okay. And then you got Theater Row, like on 46th Street has a row of restaurants, and they're all a little more expensive because they know they're getting out-of-towners, but some of them are pretty good there. So I won't say, I will just say stay away from Times Square because that's Suckerville.
Yep.
And if you go down below 14th Street, you're going to have your pick of restaurants, like every block.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that is the old New York that I remember because, like I said, that we heard that a lot of places are closing, and the sad landscape is McDonald's and all these crap. They make all the money right now during COVID. They're making all the big businesses. So it's up to us to support the small guys, and same goes for comic shops, right? We need to go out there and make sure those guys are paying their rent. We want them to stay in business, so it's important. Give Amazon a break. Give Amazon a break for a while.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Oh, no, that's from day one when we started this. We were always saying support your local comic shops because without the comic shops, you're not going to have comics eventually.
And if you want to do it right, you got to collect what you like. Right?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Right.